Welcome to the Pain-Free Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Lida Johnson. I am a certified personal trainer, and I'm here to help you achieve your fitness goals without pain. In each episode, I'll share tips and strategies that will help you stay safe and pain-free while you're working out. I'll also interview experts in the field of fitness and pain management. So if you're ready to learn how to stay active and pain-free, then subscribe to the Pain-Free Athlete Podcast today. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Pain-Free Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Lida Johnson, and today my guest is Lida Johnson. She is a certified health coach, nutritionist, personal trainer, behavioral change specialist, and pre-diabetes lifestyle coach. She is also an endurance athlete whose background includes hiking through the Appalachian Trail, Ironman distance triathlons, CrossFit, indoor rowing, and she speaks powerfully about the idea that everyone is an athlete in their own way. She is the author of an upcoming book, 6 Million Reasons to Hope, Finding Inner Light After a Life of Hurt, which is scheduled for early release in July of 2026. She is also the founder of Head to Toe Coaching, where she helps people cut through the noise, build real daily habits, and become the healthiest version of themselves for good. Lida, welcome to the show.
Well, I am super excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So you have a resume that is kind of crazy. So
It is crazy.
You've done all these things.
Because life is crazy, really. And so, my journey in wellness or health and wellness actually started with not being healthy at all, coming from just a family of trauma. And at 18, I left that family. I walked away from my family because it was so toxic. And in that process, the first sort of endurance activity I did, which was through hiking the Appalachian Trail, it's quite comical because I had never hiked a day in my life, like ever. And
you're like, let me go do one of the hardest trails ever.
Yeah, sort of. And then I had never camped. So I bought a tent and I went over to my neighbor's house and I pitched it in the backyard. And then when I had to go to the bathroom, I went into the house. Like that was my experience. But I was writing a paper to graduate from college and I came across an article in National Geographic. And so I had done all this research and I said, oh, well, maybe I should do this. And then as soon as the thought came in, like I was interested in doing this, it was all the noise saying, Lida, no way can you do this. You haven't done this and you haven't done that. And you've never like even ran 2 days in a row. Are you kidding me? And then one day I just said, I'm going to do it. And I started off, and for the listeners on the call may not know, the Appalachian Trail is a footpath that runs from Georgia to Maine, and it's approximately 2,100 miles. And I didn't set out to complete it. That actually wasn't my goal. I said, I'm just going to go out and do what I can. And I was nervous about doing it on my own. So I found another woman through the Appalachian Trail Association, and she started off with me. And after 250 miles, she was done. I'm like, oh, what do I do? So I left. We were in Virginia and I went up to Maine and I hiked back down. And I was ready to call it quits. It was approaching Thanksgiving. I wanted to be home. I wasn't going to have enough time. I call a friend and I'm like, I'm done. And he's like, you can't quit. And I'm like, well, sure I can. I'm not having fun anymore. And he's like, but you seriously can't quit. Do you know how many people want to start this? And you have an opportunity. And it was seriously like 200 miles, which is like nothing from finishing it. And he drove down to Virginia and hiked with me for a couple of days. And so I finished on Thanksgiving Day, which I thought was going to be a sad day. But in the end, it was a great day because I'd spent so much time alone that it was such the perfect day to reflect. And I learned so much about myself in that process, not just physically, but mentally, and learned to put it all together, meaning the consistency, the day in and the day out, and how to manage the wear on your body, right? And how do you fuel for that? Although hiking is a whole other way to fuel. But yeah, it was an amazing experience. And it really was the beginning of the idea for me that fun is, and for everybody, if you put your mind to it, you can do it. It doesn't matter if it's like a 5K and you've never run a 5K. There's programs where you can get a coach to help you. It's just the idea of pushing yourself beyond what you think you're capable of, because you are capable of doing it.
That's crazy. I can't even, because you also did Kilimanjaro.
Yes.
And
That
how
was
was that?
that was crazy because I was voted least likely to succeed because I had gotten sick when we
Mm.
landed and I had this chest congestion. And interestingly enough, I met two other couples and I met them when I hiked the Inca Trail in Peru and we really connected. And so we decided that we were going to hike Kilimanjaro together again as a group. So I was voted least likely to not succeed in this because I was sick. And we were at our last campsite. So Kilimanjaro was over 18,000, 19,000 feet, I don't know, something high. And
Yes.
we were camping at 18,000 feet and I was sick. And you've heard the expression, you cough up a lung, right? Well, I'm in this tent, it's pitch black, I cough and something solid comes up. And the first thing I think is, I just coughed up my lung. So the guy comes in, he's like, Lida, do you know where you're at? Do you know what you need to do? And it was a disaster. Like I would shuffle a bunch of steps and then, they teach you the rest step where you take a step and rest and it's a more moderate pace. Anyhow, I got to the top and we literally descended 10,000 feet and I was perfectly fine the next day. Go figure. But it was literally in that case, putting one foot in front of the other and just knowing again, a lot of these feats, accomplishments, they're more mental than physical. Yeah, they're physical, but there has to be some tenacity, some grit, some stubbornness to say, I got this. And to recognize that literally putting one foot in front of the other will get you across that finish line, whatever that is.
That is absolutely amazing. Congratulations. I know
Thanks.
it's been a while, but whatever. It's
I
still
was
cool.
so happy to.
So you talked a little bit about food, and I wanted to kind of touch on that because that is a part of your work. So we have this idea, and it's kind of this dichotomy, right, of how either I can eat a lot after I do some training because that's my reward, or I have to punish myself because I had the cake and whatever. And how do you, I mean, they're connected, but they're not like, so what is your philosophy about that?
Yeah. I personally didn't really make the disconnection until I really began to understand the statistics of what happened. So, most of us who are on a weight loss journey or a fitness journey, we might start tracking our food. And so we get hung up on the numbers of things, right? We think we're healthy based on a number on a scale. So when we start tracking food, a few things happen. One is we always underestimate the amount of food we really do eat by 25 to 30%, right? So if you're logging into MyFitnessPal and you say that you're entered 1,500 calories, it's probably moving more like 1,700, 1,800, 1,900, right? We always underestimate, our caloric intake. Then on the other side, we always overestimate the amount of calories that we extend when we go for a walk. So when my clients were saying, well, I went for a 30-minute walk and I burned 300 calories, so I get to eat that, I'm like, well, no, not really. And you probably really didn't burn 300 calories. And it becomes, as you said, a reward or a punishment. So when you begin to emotionally separate food from exercise and you say, I'm going to eat because it's fueling my body, and then I'm going to exercise because I love it, it changes your approach. It changes my client's approach. It changed my approach to, well, I'm just going to go for a run because I feel like it. I'm not going to go for a run because I had a brownie or I had, 8 ounces of chicken instead of four. And when you intuitively listen. And so for me, it comes back to just intuitively listening and becoming aware of why you're eating, where you're eating, and how you're eating. So when you sit in front of the TV, you eat more calories than if you do sitting at the dinner table.
Right, right. Because we're tuning out our brains and we're not paying attention to the full response and all the other things that are going on. Well, we're disconnected from our bodies. I mean, let's
Yeah.
be honest. And we've kind of talked about that a little bit, is that there is that disconnect that a lot of people have. And right now we're blaming technology. But I mean, back before there was technology, we found other ways to disconnect ourselves from our bodies, whether it was drinking alcohol, doing drugs, or, whatever you may be doing to get yourself out of your brain. Some people use exercise to do it. And there's a point where it's healthy, and then there's a point where it's not so healthy. And that's probably my next question is like, why do people do that? Like, why do we get like crazy about training really hard and then we get injured and then we have to start all over again? And why does that cycle end up happening?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And I think it is a little different for everybody. But I think when it comes to food, I did this. I stuffed my emotions with food. So when we don't feel our feelings, we need another outlet to process things. And so people might go running to get the adrenaline high or exercise to get that high that they can't get emotionally because we're stuffing ourselves. And so then that goes back to, well, let's change the mindset and eat because we need to fuel our bodies appropriately and then move for the sake of moving. And yeah, people think that exercise is the solution. Like if I exercise and I eat the same, then I'm going to lose weight. And it just doesn't work that way either.
Yeah. Well, there's been a lot of studies that have been talking about the fact that this whole starvation thing that we do, because we don't realize that we're doing it, but it's so 80s, right? Of the do 9 million, hours on the treadmill and then lose a bunch of weight, and that's going to work. And as people get older, your metabolism shifts, right? Your calorie burn shifts, all those things happen. And a lot of us are trying to go back to that routine and thinking, well, if I just go out and run more, or if I go to the gym longer, then I'm going to lose weight like I did when I was 20. And that's just not happening.
Yeah, and my new thing that I like to say is listen to the experts and then don't. You need to make anything your own. So often we jump from one diet, one exercise program, one whatever, the next thing because my friend tells me I'll lose 10 pounds or the expert is telling me that this will happen. But it really comes down, and you talked about awareness, is that you need to connect your awareness and what food is doing to your body. I've been on calls with clients who don't even realize they get headaches every day. And 2 weeks after having conversations, I'm like, do you realize you're getting headaches often? And they're like, no, we're not even, or we think that it's normal, right? We think it's normal to have headaches or to have cracked skin or to be bloated or to have, like acne. These are not normal things. And so
Which is
we don't know what our body should be feeling. And I really hope people connect to their bodies. I actually created a diary called Food Feeling Function. And I took away all the I should have this amount of protein, fat, and carbs. Most people that I'm working with just need to get rid of sugar and processed food. It's a different thing. But we get back to, well, I ate this at 10 and at 2 I feeling like I need to have a nap or I'm groggy or I'm agitated, right? There is a correlation of what we eat to how we feel and function. And people don't know that. Interestingly enough. Is that what you
Yeah.
find as well? Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're one of the people that is reaching for a tea or coffee at 3 or 4 o'clock, that's one of the things that you got to look at is like, well, what am I putting in my body? And, digestion is complex and everybody's digestion is different. And some people can go and pound food and totally be fine. And other people pound food and it puts them in a coma because it bogs them down. And some of the alternatives, especially if you're in endurance sports, is that people go to the sugary processed thing, whether it's the bar, the gel, the drink, or whatever, and they think that's going to carry them through. And it's really, you're deficient. And when I looked back at my own personal journey going through my half Ironman training, I was so underfueled. I surprised that I didn't hurt myself, to be perfectly honest, because I was relying on those gels and I was not looking at protein. And when you're out on the bike for 3-4 hours, guess what? You're breaking down your muscles. And what do muscles need to build is protein. And if you're not eating enough protein, then you're not going to recover well. and then
Mhm.
it's not going to make your training fun. I will tell
No,
you
because
from
then
experience.
recovery is hard, then you don't sleep well, and it has this ripple effect, which is why it's really important to figure out what works for you, right? Because as you said, food could be a healer for you and poison to me, right? And so I don't do the gels anymore. I used to, and oh my God, I would be constipated and it would be horrible. So I try to do as natural as I can, but there is a point where I just need to get calories in. And I know,
Right.
like, at that point, I don't do solid foods well, but I do liquid foods well. And I happen to love baby food now. When I'm out on a long run, I pull out my little baby food pack thing and everybody's looking at me and I'm like, and it's easily digestible. It's a food and I'm like raring to go. And
Right. Yeah,
feel like you
it's and again, especially doing endurance sports, it really is about what you can tolerate, because there are some people, like, I know that go out and train and they're like, "I brought a Subway sandwich to eat at the turnaround," and they eat it and they can run it and they're totally fine. A lot of trail runners are like that too. They're like, "I'm gonna eat a pizza," and it's like, "Ugh." Like,
yeah.
I could
But you
never eat
have
a
to you
pizza and
have
then
to
go run.
yeah, and you have to train that. Like, I went for a ride this past weekend, and I haven't been doing endurance stuff, and, when I hooked up with my girlfriend, I'm like, "Oh my god, this feels like training," because I didn't feel like eating breakfast, and I had to force myself to eat breakfast. So when I get into that endurance mentality, I you have to train. Like, I don't wake up hungry, but I know I need to do it. So when I'm
Mhm.
really training, I have to say, "Okay, Lita, you need to get up and you need to do this. And if you're having oatmeal, you need to allow 2 hours because you know you're going to have a bowel movement and blah, blah, blah." Not to get
Right.
gross on your call, but
Yeah.
you have to train your body to do what it needs to do because you don't always want to do what you think is right for your body. You need to do what's important for your body, and you can
Right.
train that.
So you were talking about sleep. And often we talk about training, we talk about nutrition, but the comment is like, just get good sleep. Where do you see with your athletes what their sleep habits are, and what do you do to help them prioritize sleep?
It's not just the athletes, it's anybody. I had a woman trying to lose weight and, within the first 2 calls, we discovered she's sleeping 4 hours a night, and I said, "You know what? We're
Right.
not even gonna talk about food. Let's talk about your sleep routine. Let's get you to bed earlier," and it was hard for her, but she lost weight without even doing anything, and when we went through it, I'm like, "Well, that's because you're going to bed at 10 or 11 now. You're not snacking because 'cause you're up until 1." So there's a lot of things you could do to get your circadian rhythm and get yourself back on track. But, statistically, and the research shows that when you don't sleep, you make poor decisions, right? And I don't know about you, but I know sometimes when I don't sleep well, what's the first thing that goes is my workout in the morning. I'm too tired.
Right.
Right, so you need that energy. So often we'll just put a hold on something depending on where they are and say, "You know what? Let's figure this sleep thing out and why." And sometimes it's the cell phone by the bed. Sometimes, it's this ego, and a lot of this is ego. Sorry, folks, to tell you this, but we think that we're so important that we can't put our emails aside. Like, shut it off, people. You know what? We can live. Like, I understand if you have kids and you need to be available or whatever, but as a whole, we're just way too attached to that phone. And that's a huge disruptor, along with light and temperature and drinking caffeine too late or having alcohol. I mean, this is where your diet now impacts your sleep. So this is why it's all integrated. And that's why I love being that person that knows all of this to know how we can include habits into your life that are sustainable.
And that's that behavior change that a lot of people need.
Yeah. And it's you know what I find it's simply education and conversation. Of while there's a certain amount of population that I could just say, don't do this. I try not to do that, but you know, don't do this. They won't do it. But most of us want to understand why we're doing something. And when I educate, and it's funny because people will come back to me and they'll be like, oh, I have these fudge bars every night before I go to dinner. And I'm like, hey, do me a favor and go read the ingredients. And then they come back on the call and they're like, I hate you. I can never have a fudgesicle again. And I'm like, I've done my job. Yay.
Well, because there is just something about that, right? Like, what is it, Maya Angelou, right? If you once you learn, once you know better, you'll have to do better. And it's like, if you're looking at all the ingredients and you can't pronounce them, then it's probably not the best thing for you to be putting in your body. And
Yeah.
that's not to say that you can't have a treat or whatever, but if you're noticing that there's a consistent issue, then you're going to have to make some adjustments.
Yeah, and I would say that none of this is perfection, and I follow the 80-20 rule in a different matter. If you do the right things 80% of the time, the rest of the 20% of the time is life. And that 20% isn't going to derail you from your journey, whether that's weight loss or fitness or, stress management, whatever that is. So the idea here is to not be perfect because we're human beings. We're not intended to be perfect anyway. So allow
This
yourself
is
some
true.
grace to say
I love that.
it's okay.
So you wrote a book.
I did.
Can you give us a little hint of what it's about? Because obviously I don't want to ruin it because I want people to go and read it for themselves.
You can't ruin it. It's really a journey. It's my journey, but it's the life lessons of working through hurt, working through trauma, defining some things and saying that in this process, you can become the fullest, brightest version of yourself. And it really shows that it's all integrated. I was addicted to sugar. I had emotional problems. I had relationship problems. I had all kinds of problems. And, you don't fix just one thing, it's all sort of integrated. And I really want people to take it's a workbook as well. So it's sort of a self-help motivational workbook because at the end of every chapter, I have what's called a triple E section, which is explore, educate, and empower. So explore your current beliefs, your current stories you tell yourself. Then let's educate you. And then let's empower you with those empowerment questions like, what can I do to move myself forward? Because my whole approach to everything is that reading or learning without action is not doing. Nothing's going to change. You could read every movement exercise book, but if you don't actually get out and put your feet to the ground and get it done and work
That's
on it.
fantastic.
So it's
So
hope. It's all about hope.
So I love that because, we all need to be inspired. And I think that is a fantastic thing to have that. So if somebody wants to work with you or follow you or see what you're up to, like how would they get in touch with you?
So I have two websites, but my main website is Head to Toe Coaching, and that's often hard to say. So if you go to Dreaming It, Doing It, that will link you to Head to Toe. All my socials are on there. I do offer complimentary conversations because even if I can't help you, I want to get you off in the right direction. Not everybody is intended to be with everybody, and you need to find your own journey. And I want to help you because your wellness is the wellness to the American population is just so important to me. Like we need to share the word of what it means to be healthy.
100%, for sure. Lida, thank you so much for joining me today. Your journey has been incredible, and I can't wait to read the book.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And thanks again for having me. You're so awesome. I love our conversations. They're way longer than the actual podcast, by the way, folks.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I should have to do like a B-roll or something like that. All the stuff we
Yeah, all the
talked about.
bloopers.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.